these lectures. So.
And it just keeps moving in association, like
Yeah.
one thing leads to the next thing that leads to the next thing.
Yeah.
Just, again,
Yeah.
appropriate for, hypermedia and that sort of thing. And I'm thinking about that image that eventually that I ended up using, the idea of the kind of global, the satellite imagery representing the kind of abstraction of theory. And what
Mhm.
you're trying to get is to the kind of tangible, visceral experience
Yeah.
of people on the ground or something. And the idea is that the media can kind of bridge that gap and get you from one to the other. Or
Yeah.
something that becomes, just what you were saying about the cosmos, the city, and then the individual, the body.
Yeah, because that's where that's where our project goes, is there is a kind of correspondence theory that then Maestri is really, it's a kind of secularized correspondence theory, because it's suggesting that, there is, maybe not the cosmology of the Greeks, but there is a connection among these levels.
Can you sort out the my story again? You brought it up once, but I think just kind of
Yeah.
going over it one more time or something.
I could should that be the next topic, or?
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we could even use my thing
Well,
there.
why don't we talk it, and then I'll get some.
Yeah, you can have some images, or maybe not those, but some other images. But yeah, well, I can go through that. Yeah, should we do that?
Yeah. The
Okay.
tape's running.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I wanted to
Sorry.
get that last part where you started talking.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the Maestri is crucial to the methodology. Maestri is a name for the methodology. Then we've also developed choreography from this notion of chora, which I need to talk about also. But but the methodology that I developed originally, and that then we tested with the FRE quite successfully, the method that we applied in Miami, which we'll get to that, but the idea was, all right, how does the function of national identity, or let's put it this way, part of what our whole project is about is in relationship to, we're calling the new consultancy, another term, the emergency, we'll have to talk about. But the new consultancy goal is to create new avenues, using the internet, using new media, as opening a new channel for the delivery of knowledge to sites of need in the community. And taking over consulting, kind of a deconstruction of consulting, if you like. Because consulting, what interests us about consulting is a way in which one institution educates another. I've always been interested in pedagogy. So like one of my books, Post-Pedagogy is Applied Grammatology. Well, what interests me about consulting is it's one institution, we'll say the academy, or certain groups or even individual experts in the academy consult outside of their students and graduate students in the academy with the community. It could be a corporation, it could be public organization, could be a community, a city, and because there's a problem in the community, it needs to be fixed, it needs expertise, the academy has the expertise, and they deliver this expertise. So we thought, all right, but the problem with this expertise that's being delivered now is that there's a strict cognitive jurisdiction which determines which knowledge is relevant to which problem. And first of all, we're dealing with the situation of literacy, in which the only kind of knowledge that has prestige is science. And that's great, and everything science is very powerful, but within the arts and liberal arts and the arts and letters disciplines, and even within the community itself, the civilization itself, there's a kind of a growing skepticism about science as being enough by itself, that somehow science leaves out the human dimension. So we have this problem of instrumental reason. And every problem being looked at in terms of its empirical dimension. And so there's some knowledge that we have in the arts and letters disciplines which suggests that there's more to the world, that you can't understand an object, you can't understand a situation you certainly can't understand a problem in isolation in that way. And so we wanted to bring to bear, not that that's not relevant, but we wanted to bring to bear on problem solving the community, ultimately on policy formation itself. We wanted to bring to bear arts and letters knowledge and methodologies on those kind of situations. And so we wanted to deliver, this would be part of what the Florida Research Ensemble would do. This would be part of what the living monument of the internet would do. It would be a way for arts and letters knowledge to be brought to bear on policy formation. There's a number of dimensions to that. But the way we were entering into that question, our particular methodology, it's actually been theorized by, say, Frederick Jameson, and as in terms of the cognitive map. He calls it the cognitive map. And what the cognitive map is just the idea that every person goes around in the world and navigates the world in everyday life, because, taking from architecture and urban studies, because they've internalized the map of their place. And so, they can get downtown because they know what downtown is and how to, use streets and all that kind of stuff. And they've internalized an image of their world. Cultural studies has taken over that idea and said, well, actually the cognitive map is really this complex culture that citizens internalize and represent their world to themselves. But there are several problems. The cognitive map is in crisis in our time. This crisis has an old name, alienation. But it's the basic fact, specifically that the world is not representable anymore. It's kind of a paradox. But the causality at work in the world is so globalized, and it's been so abstracted and made invisible by the forces of capitalism and so on, that and science and everything, that whatever on the ground problems people are having in their community or in their lives, it's not possible for them to think or understand or perceive the causes of those problems, because the causes aren't local and the causes aren't perceivable. It's kind of that same problem Plato had way back. It's not intelligible, it's not perceivable. So that means there's a break in the cognitive map. And on the individual side and the collective side, there's no way. There's no way to go. There's no way to get through. There's no connection. And so the idea is that the cognitive map needs to be made whole again. There needs to be a holistic remapping of the world that allows the individual to understand his or her connection with the global, with the collective world, and how to do that. Now, theorists like Jameson have outlined persuasively this problem, but they haven't said how this is to be done. But they've pointed to where the answer has to come from, and the answer has to come from what's called the spectacle. Again, the contemporary analysis of our world is, the name of the crisis that we are in is called the society of the spectacle. And in the society of the spectacle, basically, what that theory is about is just the idea that in fact the image has taken over and displaced and superseded the real. So that it's not a question of mimesis, it's not a question of the adequacy of representation, it's not a question of the correspondence of truth in terms of the validity or anything. It's that there is no relationship between the image, between representation and the actual, but rather there's now a condition of simulation in which the culture is so saturated with media that the image and the real have completely merged, and you can't tell them apart. It's not just a case of like media events where, because there's a camera, the crowd shows up and throws rocks, and if there weren't a camera, they wouldn't show up, It's just that there's a complete simulation situation where there's no real to compare anything to. The image is completely saturated the environment. This is called the society of the spectacle, and according to all the analyses done